You do not stay in the same place by accident. You stay there by repeating thoughts that feel harmless while they slowly erase momentum. That is why some people move fast in 2026, while others live in a permanent almost. Almost starting, almost learning, almost changing, almost earning more, almost becoming harder to replace. Their calendar looks full, their screen time looks active, their notes app is packed with plans, their saved posts could fill a library, but their life does not move. And that is the first wound this book opens. Not the lie that you need more inspiration, not the lie that you are broken, not the lie that one perfect habit will save you. The real problem is quieter than that. The real problem is that your mind has learned patterns that make standing still feel reasonable. You call them caution, you call them timing, you call them research, you call them being realistic. But in practice, they do one thing. They keep your future weak while your present feels justified. A book lands in front of you with a question that feels less like a title and more like an accusation. Why you stand still while others grow. And beneath it, a second line that hits even harder. The hidden thinking habits that pull you back every day. Not once a year, not after some major disaster, every day, during the tiny choices, during the private conversations in your own head, during the scroll you tell yourself is a break, during the purchase you barely register, during the skill you postpone, during the discomfort you escape from before it has a chance to turn into strength. This is not a book about talent. It is not a book about secret formulas. It is not a book that flatters you while your life keeps shrinking. It says something more uncomfortable. Most stuck people are not stuck because they are stupid. They are stuck because they have trained themselves to protect the wrong things. They protect mood more than mission. They protect comfort more than future. They protect self-image more than truth. They protect the feeling of being informed more than the reality of becoming useful. That is why this feels so personal. You have seen the new world already. AI agents book meetings, answer emails, summarize reports, compare products, build simple websites, generate code, plan travel, manage customer service, create ads, and help people run entire side businesses from a phone. Banking is inside apps. Investing is inside apps. Shopping is inside apps. Entertainment, work, gossip, education, and temptation all live on the same glowing rectangle in your hand. The machine can now remove friction from almost everything except one thing: your ability to choose what matters and stay with it. And that one ability is becoming more valuable every month. So why are so many people still drifting? Because modern failure rarely looks dramatic. It looks normal. It looks like opening your laptop with good intentions, checking one message, getting pulled into 3 tabs, 1 short video, 1 productivity thread, 2 AI tools, a newsletter you never needed, and then calling the whole mess work. It looks like watching endless clips about business, health, discipline, focus, wealth, branding, content, tech, and leverage, then going to sleep with a warm feeling that you were around useful ideas. It looks like tracking goals in 4 different apps while your actual behavior stays exactly the same. It looks like calling yourself ambitious while your days are built around avoiding strain. This book says the same thing your life has been trying to tell you. Activity is not growth. Noise is not momentum. Exposure is not ownership. Wanting is not building. A person can look busy for years and still go nowhere because busyness is easy to fake. Growth is not. Growth asks for evidence. Growth changes what you can do when no one is watching. Growth improves your judgment. Growth sharpens your output. Growth makes you harder to ignore and harder to replace. Growth changes how you think under pressure. Growth creates a trail. Better work, better decisions, better focus, better skill, better boundaries, better money behavior, better tolerance for discomfort. If none of that is changing, then your motion is decorative. That is why the first hidden habit in this book is the habit of confusing movement with progress. You know the feeling. You rearrange your workspace. You rename folders. You make a new plan. You watch 3 videos about the thing. You ask AI to build a learning roadmap. You compare platforms. You save resources. You join a Discord. You look at salary charts. You read comments from strangers who supposedly already made it. You think about which niche is saturated and which skill is future-proof. You tell yourself you are preparing, but preparation that never enters the body becomes avoidance wearing a clean shirt. There is a version of this trap that feels even smarter in 2026. You tell an AI agent to outline the steps, summarize the best methods, compare tools, estimate the market, and organize everything in a neat plan. It gives you structure in seconds. You feel relief. You feel clarity. You feel movement. But if your hands do not follow, the machine has not empowered you. It has made your illusion more efficient. You outsourced confusion for a moment, but you did not build capability. You borrowed certainty without earning it. That is one of the strangest problems of the current decade. People have access to more guidance than ever and still cannot move. Not because the information is missing, because the friction that once exposed seriousness is gone. It is now easy to feel advanced without becoming dangerous. Easy to sound informed without being tested. Easy to have the language of builders while living like a spectator. This book forces a cruel but necessary distinction. Are you using technology as leverage? Or are you using it as sedation? Are you using AI to multiply effort or to postpone effort? Are you using tools to compress time or to avoid becoming the kind of person who can stand on your own judgment? The answer matters because one path grows you. The other path quietly softens you. There are people in 2026 who use the same tools you do and get completely different results. One person uses AI to draft a proposal, sharpen an offer, practice negotiation, automate repetitive tasks, and buy back hours to build something real. Another person uses AI to generate 10 business ideas, ask for shortcuts, compare easy income options, and then spend the afternoon fantasizing about which one would feel best if success happened quickly. Same tech, different mind. One uses it to create output. The other uses it to extend daydreaming. That difference is not technical. It is psychological. The book says hidden thinking habits are dangerous because they rarely feel like self-sabotage in the moment. They feel intelligent. They feel protective. They feel responsible. The person who waits is not telling themselves, I am scared. They are telling themselves, I need more time. The person who avoids publishing is not saying, I fear being seen. They are saying, I want it to be strong first. The person who refuses to learn a marketable skill is not saying, I hate uncertainty. They are saying, I just have not found the right thing yet. The person who keeps spending carelessly is not saying, I am leaking my future. They are saying, it is just a few euros. And those few euros, those few minutes, those few delays, those few moments of escape, those few tiny acts of surrender, they become a life. One of the sharpest sections of this book tears apart the idea that ambition is stolen in obvious ways. It is not. Most ambition is dissolved, slowly, cleanly, respectably. Not by one disaster, but by 1,000 normal choices that lower your internal standard without you noticing. Staying up too late, starting the day reactive, clicking the easy thing first, avoiding the task that could actually change your position, spending to regulate mood, letting feeds decide what enters your mind, letting boredom scare you, letting uncertainty send you back to entertainment, letting your social circle normalize drift. This is why modern distraction is more dangerous than old distraction. It does not feel like sabotage. It feels like life. You are told to be connected, informed, visible, responsive, flexible, updated, inspired, entertained, and efficient all at once. Every app wants a relationship with your attention. Every platform trains you to expect novelty. Every algorithm studies what weakens your resistance and then serves it back to you in a shape that feels personal. Not because it cares about your future, because your uncertainty is profitable. Your inconsistency is profitable. Your compulsive checking is profitable. Your fractured attention is profitable. Then people wonder why they feel tired without building anything. The book says something most people will hate hearing. If your attention belongs to the algorithm, your future belongs to the algorithm. Not because it controls every decision, but because it controls the texture of your days. It decides what feels urgent. It decides what comparisons enter your head. It decides what standards look normal. It decides whether your mind is calm enough to think in full sentences. It decides whether you live in reaction or intention. Income, opportunity, confidence, and skill all depend on sustained attention. So when attention is fragmented, every other area starts leaking. That is why poor thinking habits always become money habits. Look at how money moves in 2026. You tap, you swipe, you split the bill, you invest a little, you subscribe instantly. You add a payment method once and never think about it again. A person can have a beautiful banking interface, a smart budgeting app, an automatic savings rule, and still be financially weak because convenience removes pain but not impulse. Frictionless spending has made small leaks more dangerous than ever. You do not feel the cost. You experience the comfort now and the consequence later. It is easy to feel organized while slowly bleeding. This book does not shame people for wanting ease. It exposes the price of unexamined ease. A coffee here, one extra subscription there, a delivery fee because you were tired, a creator tool you barely use, a fitness app you forgot about, a premium plan because it sounded serious, a course you bought to feel proactive, a streaming platform that used to be a reward but became background, cloud storage, music, editing software, newsletters, language tools, AI plans, video plans, banking upgrades, shipping memberships, in-app purchases, hidden renewals. None of them individually look like collapse. Together they become proof of a mind that likes the feeling of support systems more than the discipline of choosing. Then there is the emotional spending that hides under the language of self-care or efficiency. You tell yourself this gadget will fix your workflow. This app will finally make you consistent. This desk setup will make you focus. This outfit will make you feel more ready. This course will remove confusion. This purchase is small. This month was hard. This is an investment in myself. Sometimes it is. Often it is mood repair with better branding. The book says your financial life is not just a math problem. It is a mirror. It reflects how you handle discomfort, boredom, delay, insecurity, comparison, and impulse. A person who cannot sit with tension without reaching for relief usually leaks money. A person who constantly needs a little reward usually struggles to build reserves. A person who avoids looking directly at numbers usually avoids other forms of truth too. Money records what motivation likes to hide. That is why fear of embarrassment keeps so many people financially small. Not fear of losing millions. Most people never even get close enough to that problem. The real fear is smaller and more common. Fear of looking naive. Fear of starting late. Fear of being seen trying. Fear of charging for work. Fear of selling. Fear of saying, I do not know this yet. Fear of making content with beginner energy. Fear of speaking in rooms where people might judge your rough edges. Fear of asking basic questions. Fear of being ordinary before getting better. So people stay in private preparation mode forever. They improve their language but avoid the market. They collect opinions but never make offers. They read about investing but never face their own spending behavior. They call themselves strategic while hiding from exposure. They tell themselves one day, I will start properly. But proper is often just the fantasy version of courage. Real progress usually begins in a messy, visible, imperfect state that bruises the ego before it rewards the effort. This matters more now because the economy rewards public proof. Even if your work is not public in the influencer sense, your value still gets judged through signals. Can you communicate clearly? Can you solve a problem? Can you show results? Can you adapt quickly? Can you work with modern tools? Can you think without scripts? Can you produce under pressure? Can you keep learning after the first wave of excitement dies? A lot of people are not blocked by lack of access. They are blocked by the terror of being seen at stage 1. The book calls this respectable hiding. It looks mature from a distance. It sounds thoughtful. You say you are waiting for better timing, stronger skills, more savings, more confidence, more certainty, better equipment, more clarity, a calmer season. Some of that can be true. But for many people, the waiting is not strategic. It is emotional. It is the attempt to avoid being a beginner in public. It is the desire to cross the bridge only after all fear has disappeared, which never happens. And while you protect yourself from embarrassment, other people build ugly first versions, get corrected by reality, improve fast, and grow. They do not look braver because they feel less fear. They look braver because they do not worship dignity as much as you do. They are willing to be clumsy for a while. They are willing to be misunderstood for a while. They are willing to be average on the path to becoming useful. They are not addicted to looking prepared. They are committed to becoming capable. That difference changes income. The world of 2026 rewards people who can stack skills in practical combinations. Not perfect specialists trapped in old status games. Not shallow generalists who know a little about everything and cannot execute anything. The strongest people are learning how to connect abilities. Communication with analytics. Design with sales. Writing with AI systems. Coding with product sense. Video with strategy. Customer understanding with automation. Marketing with operations. Research with judgment. They create leverage because they bridge functions that most people keep separate. Raw effort still matters. But raw effort without direction is now one of the easiest ways to get exhausted and ignored. You can work very hard on low-value tasks and still feel replaceable. You can spend your whole week being responsive and produce nothing that compounds. You can answer messages, attend calls, update trackers, edit slides, organize notes, and still be standing on the same level you stood on a year ago. The market does not reward the feeling of effort. It rewards useful output, rare combinations, trust, results, and the ability to reduce complexity for others. This is why the book keeps returning to one brutal idea. Direction beats intensity when intensity has no aim. A lot of people chase emotional intensity because it feels like commitment. They want the dramatic reset, the hard speech, the late-night vow, the new system, the sudden burst, the identity makeover. They want to feel transformed right away. But disciplined, boring actions keep defeating emotional intensity because boring actions survive mood. Boring actions survive weather. Boring actions survive disappointment. Boring actions survive the loss of novelty. Boring actions are how lives actually change when the camera is off. This is hard for modern minds because the internet trained people to crave peaks. Viral moments, fast gains, impressive reveals, dramatic before and after stories, clean breakthroughs. But most durable growth is visually unimpressive. It is reading for comprehension instead of stimulation. It is practicing one skill without broadcasting every hour of the process. It is reviewing expenses honestly. It is doing deep work before opening the feed. It is saying no to purchases you could afford because you are building self-respect. It is making one useful thing every week until the market cannot ignore the pattern. The book gives a painful example that many viewers will recognize immediately. A person spends 2 years consuming productivity content. They know all the vocabulary. Deep work, systems, habits, leverage, goals, consistency, energy management, time blocking. They can explain how focus works. They can recommend the best tools. They can compare note-taking apps. They can even give advice to friends. But their own output is thin. Their bills are stressful. Their attention is weak. Their confidence depends on fresh motivation. They love the language of progress more than the discipline of evidence. That is information addiction. Information addiction is one of the cleanest forms of self-deception because it feels noble. You are learning. You are staying updated. You are studying the field. You are gathering insights. You are refining your approach. All of that sounds responsible. But there is a threshold where information stops serving movement and starts replacing it. Past that point, knowledge becomes emotional candy. It calms guilt. It creates the feeling of seriousness. It lets a person identify with the world of builders without paying the price builders pay. The book asks a question that cuts through this immediately. Has what you know changed what you do? Or has it only changed how you talk? That one question ruins a lot of pretending. Because modern overconsumption does not only waste time, it damages self-trust. When you repeatedly take in useful ideas without acting on them, Your mind learns that insight is optional. You become the kind of person who understands more than you embody. That split creates quiet shame. You hear a good point, and instead of feeling activated, you feel exposed. You know too much to hide behind ignorance, and too little has changed to feel proud. So you either numb out or go looking for another piece of content that promises the missing spark. That is why some people love motivation and avoid accountability. Motivation is pleasant because it warms the imagination. Accountability is painful because it measures the gap. Motivation lets you feel possible. Accountability forces you to face pattern. Motivation says you can change. Accountability asks why you did not do what you already said mattered. Motivation is easy to consume. Accountability is hard to decorate. It wants receipts. Time logs, bank statements, finished work, practice reps, direct answers. A lot of people want the first one and quietly hate the second one, so they build a life around emotional refreshment. Every week they need another video, another thread, another challenge, another reset, another planner, another promise to themselves. They speak in future tense because the future is less demanding than today. They say, I am about to get serious. I am working on a big shift. I have been reflecting. I am preparing for a new phase. The language sounds powerful. The pattern is stale. They are in a relationship with potential, not progress. This book refuses to romance potential. Potential is cheap. The grave is full of it. What matters is converted potential. What matters is the invisible decision where a person stops protecting who they thought they were and starts respecting what reality is asking from them. That moment is not cinematic. It often happens in a quiet room with low energy, after one more ordinary disappointment, when a person finally gets tired of hearing their own excuses and begins. Begins badly, maybe. Begins late, maybe. Begins without applause, usually. But begins. One of the most unsettling chapters in this fictional book is about comfort as a silent prison. Not luxury, not obvious laziness. Normal comfort. The comfort of routines that do not challenge you. The comfort of income that is enough to survive, but not enough to expand. The comfort of social circles where nobody expects much from each other. The comfort of staying in the role everyone already understands. The comfort of saying life is hard and leaving it there. Comfort is dangerous because it rarely looks like a cage when the bars are padded. You can have decent coffee, fast delivery, entertainment on demand, same-day payments, easy subscriptions, decent clothes, working internet, enough distraction, enough validation, enough income to feel not desperate, and still be living inside a small future. You do not feel panic, so you do not move. You do not feel collapse, so you do not adapt. You are numbed by convenience, not happy, not growing, just buffered. The book argues that many people are not trapped by pain. They are trapped by the absence of acute pain. Life is just comfortable enough to delay serious change. You can still eat. You can still stream. You can still buy little rewards. You can still go out sometimes. You can still tell yourself things are not that bad. And because things are not unbearable, the deeper losses remain invisible. The skills not built. The savings not accumulated. The confidence not earned. The opportunities missed because you were never sharp enough to meet them. This is why the question on the cover matters so much. Why you stand still while others grow. Because standing still is not always the result of disaster. Often, it is the result of mild comfort mixed with weak standards. And weak standards spread everywhere. Weak standards in work sound like this. I replied quickly, so I did my part. Weak standards in learning sound like this. I watched enough to understand the concept. Weak standards in money sound like this. I deserve this small purchase after a hard day. Weak standards in health sound like this. I will start properly when things calm down. Weak standards in focus sound like this. I work better with some background content. Weak standards in relationships sound like this. We are all busy. This is normal. Weak standards in self-respect sound like this. At least I am trying. Trying matters. But not all trying is honest. Sometimes trying is a story people tell themselves so they do not have to admit they are operating at a level far below what they know is possible. The book does not ask you to become ruthless in a dramatic way. It asks you to become honest in a quiet way. Honest about what your days actually contain. Honest about what you avoid. Honest about what you spend to feel relief. Honest about how much of your identity comes from consuming the culture of growth rather than living it. Honest about whether you are using your best hours for what matters or donating them to reaction and convenience. That honesty hurts because it threatens identity before it improves results. And that brings us to one of the strongest ideas in the entire narrative. Identity changes before visible results do. Always. Every lasting shift begins as a private refusal. A refusal to keep explaining yourself the same way. A refusal to keep treating attention like a toy. A refusal to keep spending from your future to soothe your present. A refusal to keep acting as if you need perfect confidence before difficult action. A refusal to keep letting your environment make decisions on your behalf. You become different before life looks different. The problem is most people expect the opposite. They expect results to arrive first and identity to follow. They think once I earn more, then I will feel disciplined. Once I get recognized, then I will feel serious. Once I lose the fear, then I will speak. Once I find the right path, then I will commit. But visible results are late. They always show up after a long stretch where only identity is changing. During that stretch, your outside life still looks ordinary. The pay has not changed yet. The body has not changed much yet. The audience is small. The skill is rough. The market is quiet. Which means you need a deeper fuel than applause. This book says that fuel is self-respect, built through alignment. Not confidence, not hype. Alignment. When your actions match what you claim to value, something inside you gets stronger even before the world responds. When you stop lying to yourself about focus, you get stronger. When you spend less than your impulse wants, you get stronger. When you sit down to build the skill you said matters, you get stronger. When you publish the imperfect piece, you get stronger. When you check your numbers instead of avoiding them, you get stronger. When you do not let the mood decide the mission, you get stronger. That strength is not loud, but it changes how you carry yourself. It changes how you think in hard moments. It changes how your future feels in your own hands. And that matters because the market can feel uncertainty. Not in a mystical way, in a practical way. Weak attention creates weak work. Weak work creates weak trust. Weak trust creates weak opportunity. People who cannot think clearly under pressure often produce safe generic output. People who fear being judged often hide behind over-explaining. People who do not practice hard enough often sound derivative. People who do not control money well often negotiate from subtle desperation. People who live in reaction often miss timing. The mind and the wallet keep talking to each other all day. That is why poor thinking habits leak into money habits, and money habits feed the same poor thinking back. It is a loop. A person avoids discomfort, so they delay skill building. Because they delay skill building, they feel less valuable. Because they feel less valuable, they tolerate weak pay. Because they tolerate weak pay, they feel financial tension. Because they feel financial tension, they use cheap pleasure to regulate stress. Because they use cheap pleasure, they avoid facing numbers. Because they avoid numbers, they feel less in control. Because they feel less in control, they avoid bigger decisions. Because they avoid bigger decisions, nothing changes. It is not one big error. It is one loop. This fictional book does not treat you like a victim of the times, even though the times are strange. It admits that the world changed fast. Automation pressure is real. Job roles are shifting. Skills expire faster. Digital platforms compress attention. Everyone looks like they are doing more than they are. Side hustle culture makes every spare hour feel like a missed opportunity. Some people feel guilty for resting. Others feel guilty for not monetizing their hobbies. The pressure is real. But the book says something important. Pressure is not the same as direction. Panic is not the same as strategy. Adapting does not mean chasing every trend. The people who grow are not always the fastest. Often they are the clearest. They know what game they are actually playing. They know which skill is worth building. They know which noise to ignore. They know what their work is for. They know how much of their life is being eaten by performative productivity. They know that every new trend is not a command. They know how to use tools without letting tools use them. They know that judgment is becoming rarer precisely because information is everywhere. This is one reason people using AI for everything can still feel deeply powerless. The machine can help produce answers, but it cannot tell you what is worth wanting. It cannot substitute for taste. It cannot substitute for patience. It cannot substitute for the ability to decide when enough research has been done and action must begin. It cannot substitute for emotional maturity when a plan becomes uncomfortable. It cannot substitute for a nervous system that can stay steady when results are delayed. Those human qualities are not old-fashioned. They are becoming premium. And yet most people still chase convenience more than capacity. They want the tool that removes uncertainty, the shortcut that removes boredom, the app that removes discipline, the investment that removes patience, the strategy that removes the need to become someone harder. But if every problem in your life is solved at the level of comfort, your capacity stays weak. Then, when a real challenge appears, you do not have enough inner structure to hold it. So you retreat. Then you call the retreat realistic. The book keeps naming this pattern again and again because naming is power. Fear disguising itself as logic. Comfort disguising itself as self-care. Overthinking disguising itself as intelligence. Consumption disguising itself as learning. Delay disguising itself as high standards. Busyness disguising itself as ambition. Convenience disguising itself as control. These are the hidden habits. Not loud sins, quiet distortions. There is a scene in the narrative that feels almost too familiar. A person wakes up already slightly tense. They grab the phone before standing up. Notifications, news, messages, market moves, short videos, someone else announcing a win, someone else showing a desk setup, someone else claiming a new passive income stream, someone else talking about the future of work. Within 10 minutes, their mind is full of borrowed urgency. They have not even touched their own priorities yet. The day begins with comparison and reaction. By noon, they feel behind. By evening, they want relief. So they buy something small, watch something easy, and promise themselves tomorrow will be different. That is how invisible habits shape financial reality without drama. Because where does income growth actually come from for most people? Better skill, better reputation, better decisions, better offers, better communication, better negotiation, better consistency, better focus on high-value work, better willingness to face discomfort. If the structure of your days is built to avoid all of those things, you can want more money for years and never become the kind of person who can hold it. And when money does come to a mind that still needs constant relief, it often disappears. Not all at once. Through leakage, through proving, through status spending, through buying convenience to compensate for lack of discipline, through debt that looks normal from the outside, through saying yes too easily because boundaries feel uncomfortable, through refusing to learn the boring parts because the boring parts do not flatter identity. The book spends a long time on one ugly truth. Many people care more about looking informed than becoming capable because looking informed gives social reward faster. You can sound smart in one conversation. Capability takes months of private repetition. You can post an opinion today. You can summarize trends today. You can talk about future industries today. But capability requires contact with friction, mistakes, revisions, confusion, repetition, embarrassment, time. Most people prefer status that can be displayed immediately over strength that compounds slowly. That is why social media can make a whole generation feel falsely advanced. Everyone knows the words. Scale, automate, monetize, invest, optimize, leverage. Personal brands speak like mini companies. Teenagers discuss cash flow. People who have not built anything serious talk like consultants. Feeds are full of business clips, productivity edits, finance hacks, trading screenshots, life advice, discipline montages. The aesthetic of progress is everywhere. but the substance is still rare. And living around the aesthetic of progress can make you forget how much real progress still asks from the body. Focus, repetition, discomfort, patience, humility, delayed reward. This is where the book becomes almost surgical. It stops talking about the crowd and starts talking directly to the listener. Maybe your problem is not laziness. Maybe your problem is that you trained yourself to avoid the exact sensations that growth requires. Uncertainty, being seen without mastery, boredom before payoff, repetition before recognition, silence before results, emotional flatness during real work, delayed feedback, temporary incompetence. If you interpret those sensations as signs that something is wrong, you will keep escaping from the path that could change your life. And the escape routes look harmless. One more video, one more snack, one more tab, one more nap, one more plan, one more comparison, one more app, one more reset on Monday, one more promise to yourself, one more small purchase because the day felt heavy, one more excuse disguised as timing, one more night saying, I know what I need to do while still not doing it. At some point, the listener starts to feel exposed. Good. That is the point. Because the book is not interested in making you feel safely understood while you continue drifting. It wants a more honest reaction. The reaction where you realize you have been participating in your own stagnation with respectable logic. The reaction where you see that your future has been losing small negotiations every day. The reaction where you stop asking what is wrong with me and start asking what patterns have I protected for too long. That question changes everything. Because once the pattern becomes visible, it becomes harder to worship. Once you see that information addiction is just fear of contact with difficulty, it loses some power. Once you see that your spending spikes after emotional fatigue, you stop pretending it is random. Once you see that your attention collapses after you open certain apps, you stop calling it lack of discipline in the abstract. Once you see that your self-doubt intensifies when you consume more than you create, you stop acting surprised by the feeling. Clarity does not solve the problem by itself, but it removes the fog that lets the problem rule you. This is where the script begins to turn from exposure toward responsibility. Responsibility is not self-blame. It is the return of authorship. It is the moment you realize that even if the environment is engineered to weaken you, you still have to decide what gets access to your mind. Even if automation changes your field, you still have to decide whether to become more valuable or more passive. Even if the culture rewards appearances, you still have to decide whether you want applause or depth. Even if money apps make spending easy, you still have to decide what future you are funding. The book is sharp here. It says your future is not built from major declarations. It is built from repeated protection, protection of attention, protection of money, protection of standards, protection of learning time, protection of recovery, protection of dignity from cheap compromise, protection of the version of you that is trying to become stronger. Most people protect their comfort far more fiercely than they protect that future self. Then they wonder why nothing compounds. The word compound appears again and again in the narrative because it explains so much. Attention compounds, skill compounds, confidence compounds, debt compounds, distraction compounds, weak standards compound, so do small repairs. 1 hour of real work each day compounds. 1 intentional purchase avoided compounds. 1 public proof of skill each week compounds. 1 honest money review each weekend compounds. 1 less reactive morning compounds. You do not need fantasy. You need a structure that allows the right things to accumulate. The book offers a modern definition of wealth that goes beyond numbers but never ignores them. Wealth is not just money. It is control over attention, time, emotional reactivity, and choices. But money still matters because money amplifies these freedoms when handled well and magnifies chaos when handled poorly. A person with money and weak thinking can become more trapped. More subscriptions, more convenience, more impulse, more clutter, more avoidance. A person with clear thinking and moderate money often builds a stronger life than someone earning more with no internal order. That is why the book refuses to separate inner discipline from financial growth. The two are tied together in practical ways. If you cannot delay gratification, long-term investing feels abstract. If you cannot face numbers, planning feels threatening. If you cannot tolerate boredom, skill building feels impossible. If you cannot handle embarrassment, selling your work feels painful. If you cannot protect your mornings, your best energy leaks into other people's priorities. If you cannot say no, your calendar and your wallet both become crowded with other people's convenience. Now the voice of the book becomes more direct. It says, stop waiting to feel like a different person before acting like one. That feeling may come late. Act first, not with fantasy, with design. Start with attention because attention is upstream from almost everything. Before you upgrade goals, upgrade what reaches your mind in the first hour of the day. Do not begin with the algorithm. Do not begin with comparison. Do not begin with random urgency. Begin with something that reminds you what game you are in. A page of your own notes, a financial truth you need to face, a skill practice block, a question that matters, a piece of work that could improve your position. The first inputs of the day shape what your mind starts respecting. Then audit your escape routes. Not all of them. The main ones. The app you open when a task becomes uncomfortable. The spending category you use when you feel empty. The content loop that gives you the feeling of momentum without any demand. The person you message when you want validation instead of action. The mental story you tell when it is time to do difficult work. Find your favorite exit doors. They are expensive. The book says something simple and brutal. Every life is shaped by what it repeatedly runs toward and what it repeatedly runs from. If you run toward novelty and away from repetition, your skill stays shallow. If you run toward comfort and away from uncertainty, your opportunities stay small. If you run toward appearing smart and away from being corrected, your judgment stays weak. If you run toward instant pleasure and away from delayed reward, your finances stay fragile. No amount of vision can defeat a daily pattern that keeps choosing relief over return. At this point in the script, the emotional weight is heavy enough that it makes sense to ask for a response. So let me say this. If even one part of this feels painfully familiar, press like on this video, not as a reflex, but as a marker that you recognized yourself before another month blurred together. Sometimes the smallest public action is the first break in a private pattern. And if you want this channel to keep speaking to people who are done with polished excuses and ready for sharper thinking, stronger habits, and real financial growth, subscribe, not for noise, for reminders you can actually use. Then the narrative continues, deeper. Because seeing the problem is not enough. You need to understand how real change starts without fantasy. It does not start with becoming fearless. It starts with shrinking the gap between what you know and what you do. That gap is where self-respect leaks out. Close it with something small and concrete, not dramatic. If you know you need more marketable skill, choose one path and give it protected hours every week. If you know your spending is sloppy, track every non-essential purchase for 30 days. If you know your attention is weak, remove the fastest distractions from the hours that matter most. If you know you hide from a visibility, publish something imperfect and survive the feeling. Action does not need to be huge, to be honest. The book warns against another common trap here, turning responsibility into another performance. Some people hear this message and immediately want to create the perfect system. New dashboard, new spreadsheet, new stack of apps, new routine from sunrise to midnight. That urge sounds productive, but it often recreates the same problem. More architecture than action, more planning than contact, more excitement than follow-through. Real change often looks boring in the beginning because it is not trying to impress you. It is trying to stabilize you. Stability matters because volatility is one of the main reasons people stay stuck. They are intense for 3 days, absent for 10, inspired for 1 night, lost for a week. Their identity keeps swinging because their process is emotional. The book says stop trying to feel unstoppable, become reliable. Reliability does not look glamorous online, but it wins in markets, in careers, in money, in health, in trust. A reliable person becomes dangerous because they keep moving when the performance energy is gone. And reliability is built by reducing negotiation. Every day you negotiate with yourself about focus, effort, spending, sleep, discomfort, practice, and standards. The more you leave important behaviors open to debate, the more likely the weaker impulse wins. So build fewer negotiations. Decide what gets protected before the mood enters the room. Decide how much money leaves for impulse spending before the month gets emotional. Decide when skill practice happens before the feed gets loud. Decide what content is no longer allowed to dilute your mind. A lot of freedom is lost not because life is unfair, but because decisions are constantly being reopened. The script then goes back to money because money makes hidden habits visible fast. Imagine two people earning the same amount in 2026. One uses tech as leverage. Bills are automated, but not ignored. Spending is frictionless, but still watched. They know what subscriptions are active. They know what recurring charges no longer deserve to exist. They direct money into savings and long-term investments inside apps without treating that automation as an excuse to stop paying attention. They use convenience, but they stay conscious. The second person also lives inside apps, but convenience becomes anesthesia. Small charges are invisible. They upgrade out of impatience. They reward every hard week with spending. They confuse access with stability. Both live in the same digital world. One is building room, the other is renting relief. That difference comes from thought patterns, not app features. The book also attacks another modern fantasy. The fantasy that every skill and every hobby must become income immediately. Side hustle culture can make people feel like rest is waste, and curiosity is only valuable if it monetizes fast. That pressure can distort decision-making. People chase crowded, easy-looking offers because everyone else is talking about them. They abandon slow-building paths that could have made them truly strong. They spread themselves across too many small attempts and call it entrepreneurship. They measure every interest by speed to cash and end up enjoying nothing and mastering less. This book does not mock ambition. It tries to clean it. Ambition without clarity becomes appetite. You keep wanting more without knowing what deserves your life. Clean ambition asks harder questions. What can I become excellent at that the market respects? What combination of skills would make me unusually useful? What problems can I solve repeatedly? What work can still matter when trends move? What tools should I master instead of merely trying? What kind of income path fits my strengths, my reality, and my time horizon? Those questions produce slower excitement but stronger positioning. And positioning is everything when raw effort is no longer enough. A worker who never adapts starts feeling replaceable. That feeling is now common. Automation can handle parts of roles that once gave people identity. If your work is mostly repetition, you can sense the ground moving. Some react with panic and doom scrolling. Others react with imitation, chasing whatever everyone claims is hot. The people who grow react differently. They study where human judgment still matters, where communication still matters, where trust still matters, where combining tools with taste still matters. They do not just ask, what can AI do? They ask, what can I do with AI that becomes more valuable because I understand people, context, quality, and decision-making? That is how technology becomes leverage instead of threat. The book insists on this because helplessness is addictive too. If you tell yourself the system is changing too fast, the field is too crowded, the market is broken, everyone is already ahead, then you get to keep your excuses while protecting your ego. But if you admit there is still room for adaptable, focused, useful people, then you lose the comfort of passivity. Now you have to choose. Build or drift. Learn or complain. Position yourself or keep comparing. By now, the listener can feel the deeper promise of the book. It is not promising easy success. It is offering a way out of invisibility, a way out of self-created stagnation, a way out of that private humiliation of knowing you could be more effective, more disciplined, more valuable, more honest, and still living below that line. The script slows down here and becomes more intimate. Maybe you have had nights where you felt the weight of all the time you have half used, not wasted in some dramatic way, just blurred, scattered, eaten by low-grade distraction. Maybe you have watched people move into better jobs, stronger incomes, better skills, more confidence, and part of you wanted to dismiss it as luck. But another part knew something harsher. They may not be smarter. They may simply be more willing to feel the things you keep avoiding. The boredom, the risk, the awkwardness, the repetition, the uncertainty, the temporary invisibility. That realization hurts because it puts the gate much closer to you than you wanted. And yet there is relief in that too. Because if the gate is closer, then the path is more practical. It is not hidden behind genius or special access. It is hidden behind daily honesty. The honesty to admit that your current habits are shaping your future more than your intentions are. The honesty to stop asking for a new life while protecting the patterns that keep the old one intact. The honesty to say no one is coming to drag my attention back, my money back, my standards back. I have to reclaim them. This is where the book begins building a new identity in the listener. Not the fantasy identity. Not a loud reinvention. A serious one. A serious person does not need to feel inspired to protect their mornings. A serious person does not hand their best hours to trivia. A serious person does not need constant emotional peaks to keep going. A serious person learns what their main weaknesses are and builds around them instead of pretending they do not exist. A serious person makes room for learning that the market rewards. A serious person treats money as stored life energy, not just digital movement on a screen. A serious person knows that some seasons feel flat and keeps working anyway. This matters because seriousness is rare now. Not harshness, not obsession. Seriousness. The calm decision to stop letting weak impulses and cultural noise run your future. And when seriousness enters a life, a strange thing happens. Simpler actions start producing more power. 1 hour of undistracted work becomes heavier than 6 hours of scattered effort. One clean decision to cancel what no longer matters becomes a statement of identity. 1 month of honest expense tracking changes how every purchase feels. 1 published project breaks the spell of private preparation. 1 skill practiced long enough starts to create evidence. Once evidence appears, confidence stops needing fantasy. It has something to stand on. The book is careful not to oversell this. Change is still slow enough to offend impatience. Some weeks feel dead, some days still collapse. Some old habits fight harder right after you challenge them. You may still feel behind for a while. You may still look ordinary from the outside, but something essential shifts when you stop lying to yourself. Your life gains structure. Your attention gains edges. Your actions start talking to each other instead of contradicting each other. The inner chaos loses some ground. That is more powerful than motivation. Motivation is weather. Structure is climate. Motivation rises and falls. Structure keeps the path visible when emotion changes. The book keeps returning to that because many people secretly worship emotion. They think the right feeling will make discipline natural. But discipline becomes natural after repetition has changed identity, not before. The first reps feel artificial. The first boundaries feel stiff. The first focused sessions feel uncomfortable. The first months of honest money behavior feel restrictive. Good. That is not failure. That is old wiring losing territory. At this point, the script invites a deeper kind of participation. If you want the next video to go harder into one hidden habit and show exactly how to break it, comment 1 word. Grow. If you are ready to build forward, stuck if you recognize the pattern and want help cutting through it. Keep it simple. Sometimes 1 word says more truth than a full paragraph. Then the narrative keeps moving, because the end of this book is not soft. It says the world will not slow down to match your hesitation. Automation will keep evolving. Algorithms will keep learning your weaknesses. Convenience will keep getting smoother. Payment systems will keep getting quieter. People will keep looking more successful online than they really are. Some of your friends will look rich while drowning in debt. Some will look productive while producing very little. Some will talk constantly about goals while changing nothing. If you build your standards from what looks normal around you, your future will stay small. So build from truth instead. Truth says attention is your base asset. Truth says income often follows usefulness, not excitement. Truth says every day of scattered focus trains a weaker mind. Truth says every careless purchase funds a version of you that values relief over range. Truth says skill gets built in long private stretches that are easy to skip and impossible to replace. Truth says fear sounds intelligent when it wants to stay in charge. Truth says comfort can quietly eat a decade. Truth says you do not need a miracle. You need fewer lies between what you say and what you repeat. This is the part where the fictional book turns into a challenge. Stop admiring clarity from a distance. Use it. Stop collecting advice that your hands never meet. Stop calling your distraction a personality trait. Stop calling your avoidance a need for perfect timing. Stop calling your weak standards self-compassion. Stop calling your compulsive consumption research. Stop calling your financial leakage normal because everyone around you does it. Normal is not a useful benchmark when normal is scattered, reactive, and underprepared. You do not need to become extreme. You need to become unavailable to the habits that keep shrinking you. Unavailable to random input in your sharpest hours. Unavailable to spending that exists only to soothe. Unavailable to content loops that make you feel ambitious while keeping you passive. Unavailable to friendships that normalize drift. Unavailable to the private language that turns fear into logic. Unavailable to the idea that feeling behind is a reason to stay hidden longer. Unavailable to the fantasy that one more month of thinking will remove the need for courage. The final movement of the script is almost quiet, but harder than any big speech. Imagine yourself 1 year from now, not in a fantasy, in reality. Same city, same body, same tools available to everyone else, same apps, same news cycle, same pressure, same temptations. What changes first if you take this seriously? Your mornings get cleaner, your money gets more visible, your work gets less performative, your learning gets narrower and deeper, your fear gets less authority, your output gets more regular, your excuses sound weaker even to you, your standards get harder to negotiate. No miracle. Just a different pattern repeated long enough to become a different person. Then another year passes. People start reading you differently, not because you announced a transformation, because evidence accumulated. Your speech is clearer, your judgment is calmer, your work is better, your finances feel less chaotic, your attention is less bought. Your opportunities increase because you became more usable to the world. Not perfect, not invincible, useful, grounded, reliable, harder to manipulate, harder to distract, harder to replace. That is growth, not a mood, a pattern with consequences. And the cost of refusing that growth is also a pattern with consequences. Another year of being impressed by ideas you do not apply. Another year of spending from tension. Another year of performing busyness. Another year of letting algorithms train your mind. Another year of fearing embarrassment more than irrelevance. Another year of using smart language to defend weak behavior. Another year of telling yourself you are capable of more while acting like your future is negotiable. At some point, standing still becomes a decision. Maybe not the first week, maybe not the first month, but eventually the evidence stacks high enough that drift is no longer an accident. It is a choice made through repetition. That is the message under every page of this book. The hidden habits are not just shaping your days, they are voting on your life. Quietly, daily, patiently, and unless you interrupt them, they will keep winning without ever announcing themselves. So, here is the closing truth. You are not doomed by the speed of the era. You are endangered by what you keep surrendering inside it. Your attention, your standards, your willingness to feel difficulty, your ability to stay with one meaningful path long enough for it to answer back. Reclaim those, and 2026 becomes a field of leverage. Lose those, and all the convenience in the world will still leave you strangely weak. The cover asked why you stand still while others grow. Now you know the real answer. Not fate, not talent, not luck alone. Hidden habits. Habits of thought that made delay feel wise, comfort feel harmless, distraction feel normal, and consumption feel like progress. Break those habits one by one, and the whole direction of a life can change without any drama at all. No fireworks, no fantasy, No fake overnight leap. Just a person who finally gets tired of protecting the version of themselves that keeps losing. A person who starts guarding focus like income, guarding money like time, guarding standards like identity. A person who stops asking whether they feel ready and starts acting like their future is worth defending. That person does not stay still for long. And if this reached you at the exact point where excuses are starting to sound cheap, do not let the feeling fade back into the feed. Sit with it. Use it. Build something from it. Protect 1 hour. Cancel 1 leak. Learn 1 skill harder. Publish 1 imperfect thing. Refuse 1 impulse. Tell 1 truth you have been avoiding. Then do it again. Then again. Let repetition become proof. Because the gap between the people who grow and the people who drift is often less dramatic than it looks from far away. It is usually made of small daily permissions. Who gets to touch the mind? Who gets to decide the schedule? Who gets to move the money? Who gets to interrupt the work? Who gets to define enough? Who gets to control what hard feels like? Decide those things differently, and life starts answering differently. This is not a speech about becoming someone else. It is a warning about what happens when you keep abandoning who you could still become. Stand still if you want. The world will keep moving without asking. Or grow. But do not pretend the 2 paths are built from the same days.